Welcome to Everyday Martial Artist, a weekly podcast where you'll join me, Brian Doucette, as I interview a different martial artist each episode and hear their story. Some guests you may have heard of, and some you probably haven't. Be sure to subscribe where all your favorite podcasts are available. Also visit our website at everydaymartialartist.com. If you're listening for a specific interview, I sure hope you'll stay and check out the other episodes. A very special thank you to Topher Williams for our custom theme music. And now, the newest episode of Everyday Martial Artist. Everyday Martial Artist is brought to you by KOOnline.com for all your martial arts needs. Sparring and safety gear, rank belts, uniforms, weapons, patches, and more. Wholesale supplies made by martial artists for martial artists. Visit us today at ko-online.com. Hello and welcome to Everyday Martial Artist. I'm your host, Brian Doucette, and as we do every week, we're joined by a brand new guest talking about their life and their journey throughout the world of martial arts and other stuff they're involved in. My guest today was born and raised in Hawaii. He was an athlete in various sports as a student and joined the Army after graduating high school. His legendary rise into karate superstardom came from winning all the major tournaments in his prime, never lost in any of his individual black belt matches, as well as kata competitions. He was inducted into the Black Belt Hall of Fame twice as a fighter in 1971 and Instructor of the Year in 1994. In the 1980s, he ventured into writing and movie production. His original screenplay was titled Dance of Death, which was released as Enter the Ninja and started the worldwide ninja craze on the silver screen. He also acted, produced, choreographed, and directed other martial arts movies, including some of the American Ninja series. He authored a book in 1983 titled American Eclectic Karate and currently lives in the Philippines. Please welcome my guest today, Mr. Mike Stone. How are you doing today, sir?
Very well. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate your time. I know with the time change, it can get tricky sometimes, so I truly appreciate the time here. What we like to do with all my guests, I want to go back to the very beginning. I want to know where that first interest came from, where that first spark came from that kicked off your martial arts journey.
Well, for me, it was very young because I grew up in Hawaii, and the culture have many different cultures and nationalities. The Japanese, Filipino, Chinese, Korean, Portuguese, obviously Hawaiian and Caucasian. So when I was young, the community that I grew up in was primarily Japanese.
Okay.
And I had a very strong affinity toward everything Japanese. I loved the people, the culture, the food. One of the aspects that I observed and really enjoyed being around was their ability to focus. They're very determined, dedicated, disciplined people. And unlike many of the Hawaiians who have an idea of living life free and easy and simple, which is not a bad idea, but maybe some discretion is used in discipline. And I love this about the Japanese people. So I found that most of my friends throughout my entire life were Japanese people because of this early exposure to their culture and ideas and philosophy. And when I was in high school, I went to a boarding school for 4 years, freshman through senior, at Lahaina Luna Technical High School on the island of Maui.
Okay.
And on the weekends, we were allowed to go downtown to Lahaina town. Actually, not weekends, Sundays only. And I used to go watch samurai movies, Japanese films.
Nice.
And I really enjoyed what I was seeing. So the first martial arts movie I ever saw was called Denko Karate Uchi. And from that, in the movie, there was a guy executing a flying sidekick. I was so impressed by it. My school is about 3 miles uphill. So we walk the distance from high school down to town. So I was so passionate and excited. I ran up, and at the high school, we have a small field that has a stage platform that's made out of soil. It's about 3 feet high. As soon as I got back up to the high school, I started practicing jumping off of this 3-foot platform, practicing this flying sidekick.
Nice. Okay.
Fast forward at my age then to when I was 35, I was invited to be a guest on a television show in Los Angeles called The Guinness Game. And in it, I could make a claim about what I could do that was different and unusual than another black belt or all other black belts. And it was that I could do this flying sidekick, and I believed I could jump 7 feet high.
Wow.
So when I was in the Army and started doing karate, I had a fellow student that was a host for a kiddies program called Jimmy Jump. He invited me on the show and boasted about my ability to jump quite high. there was nothing that I could use there. So he says, well, let's put a piece of tape at the tip of a sound mic, a boom microphone. And so they held it approximately 7 feet from the ground. And there were a bunch of kids that were there for the show, live in studio. Mm-hmm. So I jumped up and I actually tipped it with my toe in a flying sidekick position.
Wow.
So that was when I was 19. Okay. So fast forward to 35. When I was invited to be on the show, one of the questions they asked me was, so how did you develop this flying sidekick? So I told them the brief history of it. And they asked, when was the last time you performed this? And I said, well, I think I was 19 years old on a kiddies program in Arkansas. And they said, but you're 35 now. Do you think you can still jump that high? I said, yeah, why not? I did it then. Why can't I do it now? So they said, well, because you haven't practiced and you're a lot older. I said, no, I practiced yesterday. I jumped over the tennis court net 3 times. They said, but isn't a tennis court net about 3 feet high? I said, yes, it is. You think that's sufficient? I said, well, I don't know. That's what we're here to find out. It's because the game is where 3 contestants will wager a part of their $1,000 that they are giving to bet to say whether the guest, myself, whether I could do what I claim I could do. So they could bet a portion or all of their money on whether I could accomplish what I said I could.
That's cool.
In the end, I did. So,
do you remember how many of them bet on you?
Yes. The first contestant was a female, and she bet $1,000, all of her money, that I couldn't jump 7 feet high and break 2 1-inch boards.
Wow.
Which was part of the contest. Mm-hmm. I actually had to break 4 sections of boards, 5.5 feet, 6 feet, 6.5, and 7 feet that were measured. And they had officials from the Guinness game to record everything and measure to make sure it would be a world's record.
Nice.
So anyway, she bet $1,000 that I couldn't do it. And the middle contestant was another lady, and she bet $700 that I possibly could do it. And the last guy was a gentleman, and he bet $1,000 that I could do it.
Nice.
So when he was asked by the host, how come you have so much confidence in believing that he could do this? And he says, I know Mike Stone. Now, when he said that, there's a rule as a contestant, you're not allowed to know anybody. Right. So I'm not allowed to know the people that are betting, and they're not supposed to know me. When he made the statement, he knew me. He didn't mean personally.
Right.
He's never met me, but through a reputation. So when that was clarified, then it was okay for us to continue the program. Otherwise, we would have had to stop because our contestant could not personally know the contestant that's doing the stunt.
Right.
So in the first jump, I attempted at 5.5 feet. First of all, you're not allowed to miss twice.
Okay.
So they give you 4 obstacles, and they each has 2 1-inch boards that you have to break going up to 7 feet. So the first attempt I made at 5.5, I didn't break it. So everybody in the audience obviously was, ooh, wow, he'll never make 7 feet. Because now if I miss any attempt again, all the way through 7 feet, I'm out of the competition. So I missed the first one. I got the second one, which was 6 feet. Then 6.5, I broke it on the first try. And 7 feet, I broke it on the first try.
Nice.
But the point I want to make, if I may, is going back to the origin about where I started with martial arts. When you have an idea about yourself, when you know who you are, which is what everyone on planet Earth is trying to figure out. That's what we're seeking. We're seeking to find out who we are. And we're not doing a very good job because of a lot of things. I could go into that. It's in my program. But pretty much what we're doing in our physical lives is seeking to find love. We're trying to find and get reconnected to the energy of which we were created. So that's what we're doing. And we're going to find all different ways, external experiences that we're going to try to attempt to find out who we are. And we're not doing a very good job. But once you know who you are, then everything you do becomes effortless. There's no more trying, hard work, suffering, and sacrifice. This is an idea that I was also taught to believe when I was a child, that everything was hard work, that everything required suffer, pain, and sacrifice. I simply chose not to believe those ideas about anything pertaining to me. I don't like suffering and sacrifice. I suffered pain. I do not like it. My gifts in life is 2 things. I am alive, the gift of life, and free will to choose my earthly experiences. If I choose an experience and I don't like it, why should I ever wish to choose it again?
Right.
And yet, this is what we all do. We get caught in this idea that learning is through constant repetition and it becomes habitual. This is true. So be careful what you're learning.
Mm-hmm.
Learning is not a continual process, which is what we all believe. Ask anybody that learning is a process. That is also not true from my personal experiences. Learning is instantaneous. If I teach a student something, I will teach them in the moment they exist. So that is the only place and time they can actually absorb the information and be able to repeat it to me. Not me say to a student, I'll give you 2 weeks to practice this, come back and show me what you've learned.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of a teaching technique is that?
Mm.
No, I'm teaching you now. So if we are integrated with the same definitions of what words mean, if I teach you something from my training vocabulary, if you don't understand, we cannot proceed. We have to stop and make sure we're on the same page with definition of words I'm using to share information with you. So if you don't get it, then you won't get it. But the basic premise is this. Once you come to the realization that you know who you are, which is the first question of the 6 we ask in our program, once you can answer this question, the rest of life becomes effortless. Why? Because you know who you are.
Right.
The problem with you, not you specifically, but you generally speaking, is that we're still trying to find out who we are and we don't come up with very good answers because we keep making the same negative choices over and over again. Scientifically, if you have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day, and at the end of the day, I ask you, do you remember what you were thinking? And you said, I only have about 15 thoughts that I can recall. And I said, but you had 60 to 80,000. And they said, how is that possible? I don't remember that many. Why do I only remember 15? Because those 15 are the negative ones you repeated 60 to 80,000 times during that day.
Mm-hmm.
So you have become very proficient, repetitively, habitually remembering 15 negative things that you'll continue to profess tomorrow. Why? Because you had 60 and 80,000 times that day to solidify it in your mind as to who you are. So you're going to do who you think you are.
What was the actual first style you studied and kind of what led you to that school?
Okay, I'll tell you, but it doesn't matter. I will tell you now that the style I selected did not matter. The style or system does not make me who I am.
Right.
So I want to be clear about this because what I've seen happen, the reason I left the United States 40 years ago is because of this very point. I saw the direction in which karate was moving and the martial arts, and I did not prefer to continually go in that direction.
Okay.
And it had to do with this very first question you're asking me about my style or system. But I'll answer you.
Okay.
I picked Shorin-ryu karate because I had no choice. No choice meaning, of course, that's not true. I have all the choices in the world.
Right.
But he was an instructor that came there. I've never had karate training at all. I just graduated from high school about 4 or 5 months ago. I was in the best shape of my life. I met him at Fort Chaffee, Arkansas, where I was assigned for the last 2.5 years of my enlistment. And he is a fellow Hawaiian. He's from the same island I'm from. I admired his younger brother, who was a senior that played the position of N on our football team.
Nice.
So we had something already in common. Being Hawaiian, from Hawaii, athletics, his family. So I gravitated to him and the idea that this was not a team idea, that the results of me training had to do with me only. I was 100% responsible for everything that happened in my life. So I wanted that challenge. I wanted to be personally responsible for the decisions, even of other people. We had referees, officials, and judges that judged our fighting.
Mm-hmm.
They did not matter to me. They're going to rule always in my favor. And the reason I can coerce them in such a way is that my belief in who I am is so strong that they will have to agree with me that I am being my best, not doing my best. Doing and being are two very different vibrational frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't understand the difference, it'll be difficult for you to continually improve physically because you don't know the difference.
Right.
So Shorin-ryu karate was what I took, and that was the opportunity I had, so I took it.
Nice. What drew you to the competition side of martial arts?
Well, what drew me was earlier in my life, I failed the fourth grade. I was not considered smart or intelligent by my teachers, my students, because I was an exceptional athlete. So at that time in our societies, athletes were jocks. They were not supposed to be smart, and the nerds were. So we kept in our own track. So I was not supposed to be intelligent. And the more people said I was stupid, the more I believed them. And the more people praised me for my athletic skills, I believed them. I became a better athlete and a dumber student.
Okay.
That's how that started. But it came a time that I would have to make decisions for myself and take responsibility for my choices. And how long was I going to continue to make the excuse and the alibi that I am a product of my environment? To a certain degree, that is true. But when you reach a point of wisdom and understanding and knowledge about who you are, you must stop continuing the belief of what people told you who you are. Because all you were taught from the time that you were born until about 6 or 7 years old and longer is that you were taught how to be afraid. Those were the lessons you learned in life at the most impressionable period of your life, when your brain was not fully developed. You were taught how to be afraid of everything. Get down from there. You want to break your neck? Don't go near the water. You want to drown? Don't touch that. You want to get electrocuted? Don't go near the dog. It'll bite you. You're going to get sick. Our parents taught us how to be afraid with the intent that they were teaching us love and safety and protection. In truth, they taught us how to be afraid. And I have clients that come to me from all over the world, and all they talk about is the fears they've never been able to let go since they were a child.
Wow.
Is that the environment that we were raised in? Yes. Do we have to continue that idea? No. So when are you going to choose to decide to figure out who you are, not what everybody tells you you are? You're not dumb, stupid, lazy, ugly, no good, fat, and won't amount to anything unless you believe that.
Right.
Then you will continue that idea.
Talk a little bit about, I've seen videos and had other guests that competed back then. It was definitely, you said yourself, you didn't like the direction it was going. Martial arts kind of changed in the U.S., but what were some of those tournaments like? A lot of people refer to it as the blood and guts era of karate. Talk a little bit about some of those experiences.
Well, it was simply, again, it's simply the way it is. Mm-hmm. Back in the early 60s, karate was a very new fledgling idea. I was naturally, from the moment my mother died at 11 years old, I changed my personality. I became angry, mean, vindictive, aggressive. Those were the qualities I found out that coaches wanted in an athlete like playing football. Mm-hmm. So again, the angrier I was, the more violent I was, the more aggressive I was. It was a skill set that people encouraged me to continue. So when I went into the Army and I had an opportunity to do this, not as a team member, but personally, that I could continue this idea on my own and accept the responsibility for it. Now, at that time in the 60s, the only people that were doing martial arts pretty much were ex-military people that came back from Vietnam. Oh, no, not Vietnam that time. That was just when I started. Came back from Okinawa, China, Korea, places like that in the Orient where they did martial arts. So when they came back, many of the foreigners or Americans that came back from learning in the Orient, one of the principles, one of the unwritten rules and laws governing training, no matter what country they came from, whether it was China, Okinawa, Korea, or Japan, that when they taught foreigners, there was a minimum. It was not a written code. It was a spoken idea that's shared among all the styles and systems, that no student would get their black belt until at least 5 years of training. That was the code. That was my instructor told me that my very first lesson. Wow. He said, I don't know what you guys think about martial arts, but I'm telling you now, it'll take you a minimum of 5 years to get a black belt. When he said that, I said to myself, that's a bunch of shit. It's not taking me no 5 years. First of all, I have only 2.5 years left of my enlistment at this particular base. So my instructor is not going to be there. So if I move to another place, do I start from zero again to take another 5 years to become good at something, another system and style that they believe is superior to another? Is I'm going to get caught in this treadmill of thinking? So at that time, people were warriors. Yeah. These were military people that were brainwashed, they deteriorated your personality, and then they build you up as being a killer. So people coming back and opening martial arts schools, believe me, it was not like it is today.
Right.
It's not like the early 70s where they introduced kids and safety gear. I invented safety gear. Why? Because I knew the value of it. Why? I hurt a lot of people. So it was necessary to come up with something to protect these little kids that didn't have a clue. Mm-hmm. So back in those days, when we competed, it was just a stand. Listen, if you are a competitor, I hate to make it sound like it's incredulous to me why people don't get it, but it is incredulous to me why people don't get it. You're a warrior. If you're in the military, they train you to fight and kill. You're a warrior. If you're angry and if you want to protect yourself, you are a warrior. And there's different mindsets to create this type of idea, this type of reality for you. So everybody that competed at that time, forget the rules. They had rules, but what was it for? Nobody followed them. Everybody was trying to rip my head off. You're competing. I was I excelled in football and all of the sports. Why? Because I had that killer instinct. I'm not going to lose. I'm not going to lose. So this idea was, we instinctively have self-preservation. We're asking and talking about things that you are forgetting who you are intuitively, intrinsically, inherently. You're going to protect yourself. This is who we are. So what is the problem? People are, this guy has no control. Why should he control himself? He's trying to defend himself. So everybody was out there trying to win. They were trying to be the best they could. That's all I tried to always be, the best I could be. That's all I tried to do. I was not angry. I didn't know half the people I fought. I didn't care about who they were, where they came from, how big, how fast, how strong, how heavy. That's not my concern. They believe those ideas, they believe those skills, abilities, and talents are necessary. No, it is not. Your mental attitude is necessary. So that idea about fighting was like, yes, it was blood and guts. I never wore a mouthpiece, ever.
Wow.
I never wore a cup, ever. What for? What for? To protect myself? From who? From what? What are they going to do to me that's going to hurt me? Nothing. Nothing. They can't hurt me. I won't allow it to happen. And that mindset allowed me never to be even punched in the face once.
Wow.
Once, ever. I never practiced sparring. Find anybody in the martial arts that said they practice sparring with me. You will not find them, not even my students. Why? I don't practice sparring. I fight. I don't practice sparring. My mindset has never changed. I don't want it to change. I want to be able to protect myself.
You mentioned your students. What made you decide to start teaching?
Because I can only share what I know.
Mm-hmm.
And all I knew was how to fight. All I knew was martial arts. I had a passion and excitement for it. Why? It was a freedom of expression. They allowed me to do who I am until they kept changing the rules, because who I am was not, I was the first to be featured on national television. And because of that, they took karate off television for 10 years. And I was the one to bring karate back 10 years later, to put it back on TV, when I had an opportunity to be an expert commentator. And I talked to Alan Steen, a very old friend of mine, and said, listen, we have an opportunity to put karate back on through a tournament. And we ended up using Alan Steen's tournament in Texas, the United States Karate Championships, as the event to televise nationally again, 10 years after it was taken off because of me.
I heard a lot about Alan Steen's tournament. A lot of my guests have talked about his tournaments from over the years. So what do you think has changed about your teaching style the most over the years?
What has changed?
Yes.
I have changed.
Okay.
My accumulation of knowledge and wisdom has changed. So I am only interested in sharing what I know from personal experience to be true. And for me to know that, the only way I could know this is I would have to be honest with myself. Not brutally honest, just honest. Tell the truth. So in order to do that, to know who I am, I would have to go back to all the stupid, negative choices I've ever made in my life, ever. go as far back as I could remember. And the further back I went, the more I could remember. And I've made a lot of mistakes, a lot of negative choices. They were not mistakes. They were choices that I didn't prefer the results, outcomes, and consequences of.
Okay.
So that's what I'm teaching today.
So what led you to Hollywood?
Hollywood was in my backyard. I lived in Los Angeles.
Okay.
It's a natural transition into anything.
Mm-hmm.
When you become the best that you can and you want to share that, what medium are you going to use to express that? Well, the best medium is movies. So I took my skills, talents, and abilities, and I wanted to express it through movies, through what I thought, through how I think, through my movements. That's what I wanted to do. So that was a natural transition. It was not something I sought after. In fact, I never liked being in front of the camera.
Oh, okay.
Because that's not where creation is. Creativity is in the back of the camera. It's in the writing. It's in the choreography. It's in the doingness of it. It's in the creative process. What you see in front is the end result of that.
Looking on your list, you did some choreography for some great movies. I mean, Enter the Ninja, American Ninja. I love American Ninja. One of my favorite movies from my childhood. That's cool that you got to do the choreography on that. Do you still have any kind of interest in? Is that something that you'd ever, do you still write? Is that something if they asked, hey, we will come up with a script or something?
I was writing up until the moment we clicked on.
Really?
I'm writing all the time.
Nice. Any possible screenplays you're working on, or you're more writing for books, or what type of stuff you're writing?
Yeah, I'm writing for books. I'm writing about, I've been blessed with tremendous imagination and visualization. I've been blessed with the ability to dream awake.
Mm-hmm.
That means I can participate in my dreams. I can structure my dreams. I can be a part of it in many different realms of reality or imagination or visualization. So yes, I normally wake up 3:30, 4 o'clock every morning from a dream that I've created. And then I try to get on the computer and start writing my thoughts and about what the dreams were. And then I've spent a lot of my earlier life going away on personal retreats for 30 days to fast, only drinking water, and to go in isolated, secluded areas like in the far reaches of the jungle in Palawan. And stay there for 30 days. And there is so much to learn. I am saddened by the fact that the end of my life is coming because, I've wasted so much time in doing things that I thought were important in my learning process.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not. All I learned to do was to make negative choices repeatedly over and over again and make excuses and lies for them. That's not the best way to live.
Right. You've worked on changing that though, and you've definitely, kind of taken a different path.
I've changed all of it.
Yeah.
I've changed all of it. It may sound in my voice to you and maybe your listeners that I have a great deal of intensity. This is an asset. You're not hearing anger. I am not upset or angry at anyone for anything. I'm simply expressing passion that I have in what I believe in and who I am. So it may come across that way to a listener because it sounds like a great deal of energy. And it is. It's supposed to be.
Do you still do like motivational speaking, or did that kind of stop after COVID?
No, in fact, I had a client that just came here on vacation. I met at a party 2 nights ago, and he is coming again. He's an exceptional person. I will give you his name and you can look him up.
Okay.
His name is Julian Pavoni.
Okay.
He's a child prodigy, a drummer. He's only turned 20 years old. I was at his birthday. But just after speaking with him and his father, they had only a few days left here, and so do I before I have to go to another event, another activity, that they wanted to take lessons so bad based on what they heard me talk about just doing dinner. And what I shared with them were similar things I'm sharing with you and your audience.
Mm-hmm.
And it's my belief in certain aspects of who we are as human beings, our humanity. And they liked it so much that I said the only way I would entertain them is that I don't want them to come for an hour and a half and listen to me talk, because they'll walk away and 2 hours later, they won't remember anything. So I said, if you have only 3 or 4 days left, the only way I'll have you come and talk with me is if you come for 4 hours at a time from 8 to 12 for 3 days in a row. And they agreed.
Wow.
So we've had our first 2 sessions the day before yesterday and yesterday for 4 hours each. And he's coming this morning at 8 for the last 4 hours. So yes, this is the impact we can have on people. A 20-year-old guy that is accomplished When I say accomplished, I mean he's a child prodigy when it comes to drumming. He started drumming at 3 months old.
Wow.
You'll read about him. He's had over 300 appearances on all the talk shows in America. He's in the Guinness Book of Record twice for drumming. So with all of this skill that he had some doubts about who he is at 20 years old, and he wanted to get some answers. So that's why he's attending my sessions.
Talk a little bit about the martial arts. I mentioned the book you wrote, the eclectic martial arts book.
Do you want me to go that far back and regress?
It was definitely
a funny guy.
Well,
You're a funny guy. I thought you were gonna get me on to allow me to expand and grow. Now you're going back to my past.
Well, I mean, we've been talking about your past. I'm just kind of moving forward. We talked about the 60s and 70s. That one came out in the 80s. I'm just curious what kind of led you to write that book?
I had information I wanted to share.
Okay.
What leads anybody to write a book about anything that they perceive they know? You want to share the information.
Did someone approach you and say, hey, we want you to write a book, or you made the decision, I'm going to write a book?
Well, I had some people that already hinted in that direction. And then I don't know even how I got a hold of contemporary books, but they were from Chicago, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then they reached out to me and asked if I would do a book because they may have had one other martial arts guy that wrote a book previously through contemporary books. So I agreed to do it.
Nice. Is that still available, or do people have to find used copies of it if they want it?
Yeah, they have to find it. It's, the company I think eventually closed down.
Okay.
I don't know if they still exist, but I had the insight, if you want to call it that I bought back the rights to the book. So I'm thinking about redoing it with new information.
Oh, nice. That would be cool. God, I bet people would love that.
I don't know. I would love it.
Yeah. If you do, let me know. I will definitely promote it and tell people about it, because I think people would love to see that, an updated version of that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So I'm curious then, with your background and, like I said, fighting in the blood and guts area, what are your thoughts on something like MMA and UFC? Is that something you're a fan of at all?
Yes, of course. I'm a warrior. I'm a fan of it.
Okay.
I'm not a fan of a lot of the people that participate in it.
I agree completely.
Yeah. So we don't even have to go there. We know what we mean.
Yeah.
So when I talk about warrior, I'm not talking about somebody that just can fight.
Right.
That's just the physical. Actually, fighting is the lowest vibrational resonance you have as an aspect of your spirituality or your humanity. Mm-hmm. So the physical part, I am not interested. I am not interested at all in anybody's physical abilities.
Okay. So if the UFC would have came out 20 years earlier, you probably would have fought in it, you think?
I know I would. Yeah, of course. Why not?
Okay. So kind of a fun question then. If you would have done that, what do you think, what song would you have played when you were walking into the cage? What would your walk-up song have been?
I wouldn't have a sound.
Really? Just walk in silence?
I would have my presence. Yes, I would have my presence because I've done that in my matches. Okay. I've gone to places where I was the underdog. I've gone to places where everybody was against me. The tournament promoter, all of his fighters, all of the referees and judges that came from that town. I went the World Championships in Chicago or in Peoria, Illinois, was exactly that situation. But when I walked into the arena, there was something about me that people I could hear whisper. Now, they've never met me. I've never been to Peoria, Illinois before. Mm-hmm. But I could hear people, when I walked through the tunnel coming into the arena, I could hear people lean over and say, that's the guy. That's Mike Stone. Nice. Now, how would they know that's who I am? They've never even seen a picture of me.
Yeah, I mean, especially back then when you didn't have the internet and social media and.
So obviously I'm projecting a particular energy. I'm projecting an idea, a feeling, a vibration that exceeds my physical body. And it's been communicated to the audience, and they look at that and they go, wow, I think he's going to kick everybody's ass. And that's exactly my thinking. They were reading my mind. Exactly.
So have any of your students had anywhere near the success you did in competition?
Well, I don't know. If you ask that question, you'll have to put me in a judgment situation, and I prefer not to be that.
Okay.
I'm not judging what anybody has done better or worse.
That makes sense. So in all your years, is there one philosophy that you either learned or developed that is at the top of your list as the first one you think of?
Absolutely. I'm glad you got to what I wanted to hear. Of course, I have a philosophy that was taught to me by a guy named Jimmy Gregg, an assistant football coach during my junior summer in high school.
Okay.
I was blessed to have the opportunity for him to volunteer to help make me the best I can be. So During 6 weeks prior to our spring training for football,
Mm-hmm.
he took charge of my life and introduced a particular philosophy that I still carry today. I will not stop thinking this way because that mindset is what I've used throughout my life, throughout my competitive career, and it is magic. Very simple. I will share it with you and your people. He said to me one day, Mike, doing and being are two very different frequencies of energy. Your doing is the physical expression of what you think you're capable of doing, but you probably will not equal what your expectations are doing physically what you think you can. Being is a state of mind. You control this, you will control the quality of what you do. The quality of your doing is in your mindset. It's in your beliefs about who you are, not working toward, not trying to be, none of that. I'm not becoming. No. Once I accept this mindset, it now changes the brain pathways in my mind. It'll change my brain wave vibration to being that idea. And this is the phrase, always be your best. That's it. Always be your best. Not always do your best.
Mm-hmm.
Always be your best. Once
cool.
I accepted that philosophy, I changed completely. So I had one more year of football. This was my junior summer that he started coaching me for 6 weeks privately.
Mm-hmm.
When we started spring practice, I was ready to play offense and defense. He taught me in 6 weeks to be the punter, a quarterback, a running back, an end, a wide receiver.
Wow.
The only positions I didn't play was guard, tackle, and center. Now this is 1 year. 1 year comprised of 8 games. 8 football games is my entire career. In the 8 games, 2 were preseason games against better schools on the island of Oahu, the big schools where they have huge populations and they can draw much more talent.
Right.
2 of our preseason games were against 2 of these schools. The remaining 6 games were with the other 3 teams that are on the island, and we play each team twice. So there's Lahaina Luna, Baldwin High School, St. Anthony, and Maui High.
Okay.
So the other 3 schools we played twice. So my career was 8 games.
Okay.
When we started spring practice, I was in such good shape. He talked to the head coach and said Mike should be a co-captain. I became not only co-captain of the football, but also the basketball team. So in 8 games, I believe I am being my best. So what happened was I ended up at the end of 1 year with a running average of 5.6 yards per carry. That's not my position. I'm an end.
Mm-hmm.
I was voted as the most outstanding player in football for the island.
Nice.
I was selected as an all-star as an end position. Then they gave me a bonus. Now in life, I want your listeners to understand the value of how life can give you so much more than you've actually done. At the end of the year, there was a thing they created called a decade all-star team from 1951 to 1961. I was in the year 1961. I was selected as the best end in the state of Hawaii, having only played 8 games. So now make me understand how someone can be so proficient in such a short period of time without having to practice hard, suffer, and sacrifice. I tell you how you can do it. You can do it by simply choosing to believe I am the best I can be. I'm not going to be. I'm not going to try hard. I'm not going to work, suffer, and sacrifice. I am, in this moment of my existence, the best I can be. When you live in that time frame, in the present moment, then everything that you want in your life can find you. Why? Because they know where you are. We end up looking for everything externally and keep searching and looking for something that we are not. You just have to turn your vision inward. Did I explain that okay?
Oh, I think you explained it very well. Some kind of fun questions we use to kind of start wrapping up the interview. Who are like 3 or 4 or 5 names you would put on your personal Mount Rushmore of martial arts?
Don't have a Mount Rushmore. Who's up there?
I mean, it's up to you. It's your personal one. And just other martial artists you looked up to maybe?
There is no one. I don't have a Mount Rushmore.
Okay. How about a favorite martial arts book?
Favorite martial arts book? Well, you can call it a martial arts book. It's the Book of Five Rings by Miyamoto Musashi.
Nice. Great book. That's picked quite a bit. A lot of, I'd say about 20% of my guests picked that one. So that's a really good one.
I'm surprised it's not more.
Yeah, it kind of depends. It seems, to me, I think the over a certain age lean towards that one, and under a certain age, it's different books and stuff. So, but I'd say.
And which one would that be?
I know that it really varies. Like I've had a handful of people pick the book Way of the Peaceful Warrior, even though it's not really a martial arts book, but a lot of people have picked that one. A lot of people have picked Zen and the Martial Arts by Joe Hyams and Tao of Jeet Kune Do by Bruce Lee. I'd say that one and Book of Five Rings, those four are probably the most picked, probably would be my guess.
I think sometimes if the present generation would look a little further back, they would find deeper meaning and wisdom in life. Although the books that you suggested currently are good books, I've read them all.
I agree. And that's one reason I asked that question. First of all, I add them to my own list if it's one I don't have. And anytime people ask me for a book recommendation, I pull up the list that all my guests have given and say, hey, here's a big list. Pick from any of these, yeah. and you can't go wrong. So.
Right. No, there's a lot of good books.
Yeah. Also, a lot of people surprisingly pick like biographies, and not even just like technique books or philosophy books. More like, I've had a few people have picked like Benny the Jet's biography book, and
I actually prefer biography.
Yeah, me too. Donnie Williams biography. That's one of my favorite ones. So it kind of depends. It really does. I mean, I've done 170 episodes, so it does vary quite a bit. But
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. All right. How about a favorite martial arts TV show?
None.
Okay. Don't watch TV or.
Well, yeah, I do watch TV, but if I say it, well, I'll tell you.
Okay.
My, not TV show perhaps, but I have quite a library of an actor, Shintaro Katsu, that I consider my favorite, my best martial arts actor and martial artist in a way, him and his brother, Wakayama. Shintaro Katsu is the blind swordsman.
Oh, yes. Okay. A few of my guests have talked about that movie.
I started my interest in kendo and sword fighting because of watching his movies.
Okay.
A lot of the choreography I've used in all of the films I've worked with are choreography designed with his particular cutting stroke. I use the reverse draw more than the conventional kendo stance.
Okay. Other than sword, do you have another favorite weapon?
Favorite? No, they all have. Again, please, I'm going to sound like I'm very picky, and I don't mean to be. Yeah. These external implements that you call weapons, mm-hmm. they have value, and their value is in space and distance, timing. So not all weapons are all okay.
Right.
A weapon should be chosen for the efficiency and the effectiveness of their execution within time space. Just like fighting mm-hmm. without a weapon. There's a Japanese expression called ma, M-A. It has multiple meanings. But for me, I like ma because it is my ability to sensitize my body to the distance that I need to cover or move in relationship to my opponent. Now, the trick in this is my opponent also has ma, but he may not appreciate or become aware of his ma, his sensitivity to distance and space. That's why I've been so successful, I believe, is because my ability to extend my ma, that means extend my energy toward my opponent, but collapse his. So whatever energy he thinks he's pushing out in my direction, I collapse it completely. And all he is faced with is my energy pressing up against his body.
Okay.
So he feels intimidated. He feels compressed. He feels stifled. He feels afraid.
All right, one more kind of fun question. Doesn't have to be a martial arts movie. Any movie you've ever seen, favorite movie fight scene? Is there one fight scene that stands out for you?
It'll require much more time than we have.
Oh, really? That's fine.
I've seen a lot of movies.
Yep.
I would have to go back through my file cabinet.
That's okay. No worries. Well, one thing I wanted to ask you, nothing to do with martial arts, so just because you grew up in Hawaii, did you ever get into surfing?
No.
Really? Is that rare? Because I mean, most people I've talked to from Hawaii, I'm curious. Yeah, because most people I've talked to from Hawaii surf. So I'm just kind of curious why not?
Well, first of all, from the time I was 6 years old, went to elementary school, kindergarten, until I went to high school, Until elementary school, I lived up in a place called Makawao. It's not near the ocean at all. It's up
Okay.
country. It's on the slopes of Haleakala Crater. So there is no occasion or time for me to go surfing. When I was at Lahaina, Lahaina town is a very nice place for medium. They don't have big waves, but for good surfing.
Yeah.
But I boarded for 4 years at high school there. So I
Oh,
could not go downtown except
okay.
on Sundays. And I prefer to spend my time going to samurai movies. So I never had really the occasion to surf.
Okay. See, and I grew up in Minnesota, and I grew up as a fan of surfing. I always wanted to try it, but I've never been able to. But I grew up watching surfing movies and surfing contests, and so that's one question. Anytime I talk to someone that grew up on
The
the island.
Endless Summer was a good movie.
Yes, I loved it. Endless Summer was a great movie, and Chasing Mavericks, one that came out about 10 years ago. That one actually was really good too. I saw that when it came out, and yeah, there's been some good ones. I when I was about 15 years old, I used to be able to name in order the top 10 ranked surfers in the world for about a year straight. I could name them when they went up in the rankings and down. I followed it that closely, but not anymore,
Well,
unfortunately.
they were probably the same people, just shifted positions.
There was about 3 or 4 that came in and out, but for the most part, the top 5 back then were like Tommy Curran and Derek Ho and Hans Hedemann and people like that I still remember their names. But yeah, no, I was a big fan. So, but one last thing I wanted to get to really quick was your website. And I will put a link out there for sure. But what type of stuff can people get into with your online courses?
Well, the online course is what it's a 7, 14, 21, and 30-day program. It's called the Life Changing Experience.
Okay.
And I started it many years ago. But primarily what it is, people come to the facility, they come to my home, and we don't have a lot of property, but we have sufficient property that we have cottages and facilities for people to stay here. So when they come here, it's consecutive days. There's no drinking drugs, alcohol, nothing like that. You go on a juice fast. It's not optional. It's mandatory that you go on a fasting for the period that you're here. And we use fasting not as punishment, not as cruelty. We use it as a way to open your mind. It's a way to get to the essence of who you are. Deprivation is a good thing sometimes in moderation. So we use fasting as to trigger your mind and get you into an altered state. And you normally reach it if you stay in 7 or 14 days, you probably won't get there too well. But 21 to 30 days, you get there and it's quite a different sensation. You start to live the philosophy that we're sharing. You start to become that idea.
Okay.
And the reason we do it repetitiously, the answer to that, is because repetition creates habit, and we want to create a particular habit, which is always be my best. That's what we're pushing all the time.
Okay.
And in everything we're doing, in all the physical exercises, in every technique that we do, every technique, not count 1 to 10, 1 to 20, and your mind is wavering. No, you are focused. You are in the present moment in each technique. And if you ever experienced exhaustion, if you ever experienced being your best in every moment, try to count out 50 of those.
Okay.
Very difficult. But we have a lot of things in our program. We have an exercise, a breathing exercise and stretching exercise we do. I do this every morning. I did it when I got up at 5 o'clock this morning. I did an abbreviation of it because of your show. But it's a lifestyle. Again, if I may, please.
Yeah.
We are all trying to become a better version of who we are. And I appreciate that aspect of our humanity, is that we are boundless and always searching and striving to become. This is good. This is good. But once you get to know who you are, once you get there, once you are integrated completely, mind, body, spirit as one entity, as just 3 separate aspects of your humanity, when you can live like that, then there's nothing more really that you can learn. Why? Because there's things you become instantly aware through universal intelligence. All that this AI they're talking about, this is nothing compared to universal intelligence. Why? Because what people are using is artificial intelligence. Universal intelligence has been around for a hell of a lot longer than this artificial thing that people are also afraid of. There's nothing to fear in universal intelligence. And yet all the wisdom of mankind is already cataloged in the ether. So if you want to have access to any information, go directly to the original source, the source of the universe. not an artificial source.
Nice.
Anyway.
That's cool. No, and I said I'll put a link out there so people can go to your website when the episode comes out. And how often can people come and actually do that? Like, how is there a certain number of times a year you do that?
Whenever I'm available.
Okay, cool.
Because like this kid just popped in, had a birthday, met me at his birthday party. The father heard what I had to say. The son heard it and said, "We only have a couple days here left. Can we do something with you?" I said, "Yes, but it'll have to be this way. It'll have to be 4 hours a day for 3 days until you leave. Otherwise, I'm not interested." In 12 hours, I can crack open his mind enough to have light and love enter his brain cells and realize, wait a minute, there is something here I can truly benefit throughout my entire life if I just can get this concept down. So the idea is we're programming him. We're talking about how being the best is totally advantageous to you and the people you love all the time. So this is what we're doing. It's not for everybody.
Right. Oh, I agree. No, nothing's for everybody, but I at least want to give people the option to check it out. And I mean, it sounds like you're definitely having a positive impact on people, which that's an important thing. So that's really good. But I will promote it and put it out there. And before I let you go, any last minute parting words? Anything we didn't get a chance to talk about quick?
No, I'd just like to thank you for the opportunity to allow me to share my philosophy of life. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you. Seriously, I've been a fan for a while. I used to read about you in the magazines when I was a kid, and I'm glad we got to have this chat. And I'm definitely going to be checking out some of your courses and stuff. But I truly appreciate your time, and I can't wait till the episode comes out.
Okay, thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
Thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist. We hope you will join us every week for a brand new episode with a different martial artist telling their story. If you enjoy the show, be sure to leave us a review. Also, be sure to check out our website at everydaymartialartist.com. There you can find all of our episodes and contact us to suggest guests and ask questions. Again, thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist, and we'll see you next week.